Welcome into the September 29th episode of the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. Maple Leafs victorious against the Habs in preseason play. We'll recap that game and, well, we'll do our best to recap that game. It was a little bit of a weird one, Dave, but there were a few standout performances, which we'll chat about, and potentially play a little bit of cosign, no sign. Haven't played that in a couple of weeks. I'm excited to get it all going. All that and more coming up on today's edition of Locked On Leafs.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Leafs podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Leafs. I'm your host, Mike DiStefano from TSN 1050 Toronto Radio, also known as Al's brother on TSN's Overdrive and TSN 1050's Leafs Lunch. Joining me, it's my co-host, Dave Morassutti from Sportsnet, also a writer for the NHLPA. Locked On Leafs is a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast, so be sure to subscribe for free wherever you get your podcast from. You can also now catch us up on video on YouTube. Just search up Locked On Leafs on YouTube and get notifications each and every day. We are putting out content Monday through Friday, 5 days a week for the entire season, through the postseason and into the summer. So you're going to want to follow along all of our content and hit subscribe, and subscribe wherever you can, and share it with your friends and family and all of Leafs Nation as well. That'd be really appreciated. We would appreciate it a lot. So Dave, a win is a win, right? Maple Leafs blanking the Habs in preseason action. 3-0 was the final score. How do you evaluate a game like this where we saw two defensemen go out early in the game? I mean, Jordy Ben literally lasted a shift, and we have updates on these guys we'll share in a second. Carl Dahlstrom ends up with a shoulder injury later on in the first period, which meant Alex Kerfoot and Calle Jarnkrok ended up playing 2.5 periods on the blue line. And
your boy Calle.
Somehow, that boy Calle, though, somehow they still were able to pitch the shutout. Just like, what a weird game. Weird game.
It just shows Calle Jarnkrok, the Swiss Army Knight of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Dude, ain't Kerfoot. Like, we've been saying that about Kerfoot forever, and Jarnkrok was like the Kerfoot replacement, but cheaper, and they actually proved their hardcore versatility tonight.
Yeah, that's true. It was funny because Kerfoot said after the game, like, he was trying his best not to have to skate backwards too much. Like, there's a reason why he plays forward.
Well, that's what they say. That's what they all say, right? Defensemen always chirp forwards, and they're like, they can't skate backwards, and that's why they play forward, because they can't skate backwards. And I know Frank Corrado, like, good buddy of mine, former Maple Leaf, friend of the show, Frankie C. He always jokes and chirps and says that defensemen are much smarter individuals. Forwards are dumb bricks. He may not have been that harsh on them, but essentially saying that not everybody can play defense, only the guys who do. But clearly tonight, that's I don't know, man. They made it look pretty easy. I know Morgan Riley was joking around too, who said they made it look a little too easy, perhaps, both Kerfoot and Jarnkrok. And I mean, like, Jarnkrok as a right shot defenseman, I mean, if this team's in a pinch, I don't know. Like, I'm joking in a way, but like, maybe he is a guy with all these injuries that are going on. If Sandin doesn't report, I mean, maybe they decide to put Jarnkrok on the back end. I don't know.
Somebody was actually like, somebody tweeted out, here's Rasmus Sandin's opportunity. And I'm just like, yo, Cal is just like, no, we're good. We got our boy Calle here who can play on the blue line. I will say it's good to know that he can do it. And if you're going to have it happen, at least let it happen in a preseason game. But no, I'm all joking aside. It's also just like, it's crazy to think that we've seen it happen many times before where teams have just lost guys because of injuries, and it forces teams to have to like Just
play shorthanded. Like typically
yeah,
you'll see the 4 guys remaining would
yeah.
have just played the entire game, right? They would have just like Giordano would have ended up playing like 25, 28 minutes that night, along with, Victor Mete. Like that's just what would have happened. But instead, they decided to give a couple of forwards an opportunity to try and limit the minutes as much as possible in the preseason. And I don't know if you saw this tweet actually. If you want to pull it up, I sent it to you. It was by Mike Johnson of TSN,
Mhm.
former NHL, and he brought up a really, really solid point that I think I want to touch on right here, just because it's perfect for what we saw happen. But he said, new rule for preseason: if you lose a player to injury in the first 2 periods, you should be allowed to replace that player from one of the guys not playing. It makes no sense to force guys to play extra minutes or out of position in preseason. Yes, Johnny. Yes, I completely agree with that.
Honestly, I don't understand the reason why you can't dress extra guys. I'm pretty sure in the Olympics you are allowed a seventh defenseman. Like
Yeah,
it,
or a 13th forward, one of the two in
yeah,
international play. Yeah.
yeah. Like I, I've always said that good things about other sports is that you have your starters. Somebody gets hurt, you're not going, oh no, we got no one. I guess we're gonna have to play shorthanded. No, you in baseball, if a guy goes down, all right, next guy on the bench. Football, starter goes out, it's the next guy up. Like there's a reason why they do that. It's because you don't want guys to get hurt because they're having to play more than they should. Now, I do get it that because of the salary cap, it makes that even much like it would just be another headache to have to add an extra guy to the roster every night.
We're just talking
But
preseason, man.
but yeah, like preseason, all that should go out the window. Now I'm pretty sure I've seen it where teams have dressed an extra defenseman in the preseason, or at least a
Can you?
13th forward.
Are you
I've
allowed
seen,
to?
I remember seeing it before, but maybe this was just a long time ago, or maybe the rules have changed. But maybe someone in the YouTube comments will uh, have a better idea of that. I just think that I don't understand why the NHL would want to damage the product potentially by having a guy like Morgan Riley have to play so many minutes because they can't bring in an extra guy on the bench just in case, and not even just in case of injury, but you can at least make sure you're not playing guys 25 minutes a night like the Habs did with Michael Matheson the other game. And like Martin St. Louis laughed about it, but it's like it's preseason. Why are you playing the guy 25 minutes?
Yeah, it's a lot, man. Like it's a long season. You're putting tread on those tires pretty early in preseason for absolutely no reason, to be quite honest with you. Just taking a look at the time on ice, and it's not as high as you would think. And the reason why is because instead of playing that crap out of the 4 healthy defensemen, like we said, Kerf just threw out, or Keefe just threw out Kerfoot and Yarncroc. I'm pretty sure I saw Curtis Douglas got like a shift on the blue line at one point. Like he was just throwing guys out there, giving them a go. But pretty much Kerfoot and Yarncroc, for the most part, were getting opportunities on the blue line. But Morgan Riley, 23-11. That's about what you expect for him to play in a regular game, anyways. So he didn't get overextended. TJ Brody played 24 minutes. Giordano played 21 minutes and 28 seconds. And then Victor Mete, who was supposed to be the third pair defenseman, ends up with about 18 and a half minutes of time on ice. And then you look up top to the 4 group. Yeah, Kerfoot and Yarncroc end up both playing over 18 minutes in this game, and mostly at defense, which I thought was interesting. So a little bit of like line shuffling had to occur as well, because I wanted to see what Kerfoot, Yarncroc, and who they and Robertson they were on a line with to begin the game. I wanted to see what that looked like. Like I figured that was going to be a line that got a really got a long look in this game, just because those are 3 guys vying for the roster, like the main roster, potentially even a top 6 role. And that's just not exactly what ended up happening, right? They couldn't. They had to veer away from it and mix and match and throw Robertson up and play with some other guys, played with Holmberg a little bit. Yeah, it was a really weird and interesting game that we had to watch there. But hey, a win's a win. 3-0's the victory. And the Maple Leafs now, I guess, 2-1 in the preseason, I would say. Really quickly though, just to update the injuries that were suffered. So Jordy Ben, according to the media that's there right now, suffering a groin injury. Carl Dahlstrom dealing with a shoulder injury. Both will miss some time, according to Coach Sheldon Keefe. Clarity will be given after additional evaluation tomorrow. So now it's really getting thin on that blue line, is it not? I mean, you've got Liljegren out for 6 weeks. You've got now Jordy Ben out. You've got Muzzin, who returned to practice today, but only did about half of the practice. Didn't return after the flood, is what I was reading from reports. And then Sandin is still currently, doing his thing in Sweden, not in camp. So those are like 4 legitimate defensemen who you thought could be in the mix here that just simply aren't going to be due to injury. And what that leaves is essentially like Riley, Brody, Giordano. Hall is no longer a tradable asset because you need him in that top 4 now. Like literally need him. Victor Mete looking like he will end up being on the opening day roster on the third pair. And then I don't even know who is going to be his partner because I thought, Jordy Ben was one of those options. Carl Dahlstrom was one of those options. Sandin, if there was a time for him to put the tail between his legs, show up to camp, it is now because he doesn't even have to play on the right side anymore. There's a spot open on the left side at this point in time, potentially. So, yeah, the blue line is a bit of a mess right now. Luckily it's preseason and there's time for these guys to get back and hopefully it doesn't linger throughout the year. But man, did things go from being a strength? Oh, we got 7 quality NHL defensemen. We need to trade one of them, whether it's, Hall or Muzzin, potentially, move on from Sandin if he's unhappy here. And now it's like, ugh, we might have to dress like Philip Crawl or Mac Hollowell on opening night if nobody gets back on the ice soon.
It's so I depth is always a necessity, and this is why I've always hear analysts say you got to be at least 8-9 defensemen deep.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, the Leafs kind of did try to go with at least 8 defensemen, and then poof, like 3 guys, like 2 guys in one night. Liljegren even before camp started, and it's just like if I'm Kyle Dubas, I'm scouring to see who's someone that might be in tough to make an NHL team, and a team that might have to put someone on waivers.
Yeah,
and maybe you're just like, we'll throw you an asset, like not a big asset, but just something. Because then that team would be like, all right, we'd rather just get the draft pick rather than take the chance of putting them on waivers. I don't know who that would be.
Well,
But that's how
maybe
you look into it.
maybe there's a perfect situation where I know Joey Anderson requires waivers. If he doesn't make the team and there's another club out there that is in the opposite situation where they have a defenseman who needs to clear waivers and they're a little short up front, maybe a little swap, a winger for a D-man. And, it's just a little stopgap short-term fix for both sides, but maybe something like that could end up working out. That's another thing to consider at some point, or heck, maybe Callie Yarncroke will end up being the third pair right shot defenseman. Who knows, man? But this was a weird game. Why don't we take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll talk about the game as a whole. Who impressed us? Who stood out to you? It was Matt Murray's first game, his first look in a Maple Leaf uniform. He was pretty good, I would say. A couple other guys that impressed me. I'm curious to get your thoughts as well. We'll also play some cosign, no sign a little later on. You're listening to Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now a word from our show sponsor, betonline.net. It's your number one source for football and hockey betting this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every single game. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sport wagering information, live betting, and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including the NHL, MLB, NFL, boxing, golf, MMA. They got it all. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano. Got Dave Morassutti here with me. We're hosts here at Locked On Leafs. Maple Leafs coming off a 3-0 preseason victory over the Montreal Canadiens. It was a weird one. There wasn't many big names that were in this game. I would say Willie Nylander and Morgan Riley would be considered, part of the only core pieces that were in this game. TJ Brody as well. Outside of that, it was kind of just some secondary and tertiary guys that were in this lineup. But I felt that some people impressed. Let's start between the pipes, because that was the place that a lot of us had our eyes on, because it was Matt Murray making his first start, his debut in a Maple Leafs uniform. Stopped 16 of 16. Your thoughts on Murray's night tonight, Dave?
I mean, in the last episode, I said I wasn't gonna get too high if he did well. I wasn't gonna get too upset if he didn't play well. So it's good that he came in and pretty much matched what Ilya Samsonov did, because it's a competition, right? You want to see how one guy kind of responds to the other. So it's good that he responded, and also considering he had 4 NHL defensemen in front of him, that's not too bad either that he was able to do what he did. Now let's also take it with a grain of salt that this isn't the Habs' best lineup that they could put out, even though they'll have aren't exactly a team that you're expecting a good lineup from right now.
Yeah, they weren't good. Just really quickly, I've got a couple of advanced stats that I can throw out here for Matt Murray. The expected goals against from him tonight was sub 1.73 through 40 minutes of play. Well, actually, this is 5-on-5. So let me just look up all actually. 0.86 in 40 minutes of play. Only faced 3 high danger shots through the entire game. Stopped all 3 of those. And then when you look at the shot distance, where do you think the average shot distance for tonight's game would have been for the Montreal Canadiens? 16 shots on goal. Where do you think, on average, how far out from the net those shots came from?
I'm going to go with 30 feet.
45 feet, Dave.
Oh, I initially was going to go with 42. I'm like, that seems way too high.
And it was higher than that, 45 feet. So he wasn't tested a whole lot. I think we could say that. I think there was one stop in the second period where I was like, okay, that was kind of the marquee save of the night. Like I said, analytically, natural stat trick gives him 3 high danger saves on the evening, 3 grade A stops. But the fact that he didn't allow any wonky goals, I think, is certainly a positive to take out of the game too.
Yeah, I mean, it would not have been ideal to see him give up a clunker, especially against a not so great lineup. So this is definitely something to build off of. Remember, Matt Murray has to rebuild his value as a player because of what has happened in the last few years. So you got to take it slow. So this is a good first step, but he still has a ways to go, in my opinion. And everybody who's kind of said it's going to take him some time, because this is somebody who's needed a complete overhaul of his value.
Absolutely. And Shalgren, who got the third period, stopped 11 of 11, also faced 2 high danger saves, which he stopped both. Average shot distance also from 40 feet from the net, and that was with 2 forwards playing defense. Let's also keep that in mind. In this game, who else kind of stood out to you and impressed you in tonight's game, Dave?
Alex Steeves. I'm liking what he's bringing. I think Austin Matthews gave him a shout out.
He did.
That means, I know in our Discord chat, someone's like, well, Austin Matthews also gave Nick Ritchie a shout out. I'm like, wow.
Big Rich. Yeah.
Nick Ritchie didn't do so bad when he got moved to Arizona.
Yeah.
But he's still okay. But Austin Matthews, it's nice to see that he's giving a shout out to these other guys who are vying for a spot. And even Fraser Minton, who's, just trying to leave a good impression in camp. But I thought Alex Steeves continues to look pretty good in this preseason. Malgin, I mean, How can you not like what you're seeing there? He's still lighting the lamp. Again, I know it's preseason, but he's scoring, and that's a go in the plus column for evaluations when you're doing evaluations like this. And it's nice that we actually got to call Nick Robertson's game once tonight. I know it wasn't the prettiest of goals, but still a goal. They all count the same.
I didn't think it was a terrible goal. I mean, short side. Montembeault probably should have had that one, but screaming down the wing, had the foresight to see a pocket open, short side and take that shot. He's got a really good release. So it wasn't it wasn't a highlight reel goal or anything like that, but the willingness to shoot, you like it. He was dangerous, I thought, all night. He had a few really good opportunities and chances, but did end up with a goal. Malgin was another guy, too, who I was impressed with tonight, both a goal and an assist, drew 2 penalties as well tonight. So he was kind of all over the place, making good things happen. He's really an interesting name that I'm starting to really keep a closer eye on as we get through camp, as somebody who I think could be one of those dark horse guys to make this team. And I don't know what exactly, like, I don't think Denis Malgin's going to be Michael Bunting, but maybe Denis Malgin could be Andre Kasha. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
potentially he's a guy who could play up and down the lineup. He's got some speed, he's got some skill, and it seems like he's willing to engage. Like, maybe he's not as defensively sound as Kasha was last season, but
Yeah.
offensively he can maybe fill in somewhat of that role. But he's a player that I'm kind of interested in from here on out in training camp. And so those two I would say were definitely the names that kind of stuck out to me. Mark Giordano I thought looked really good. He's looks like he's in midseason form with his vision and the way that he's breaking the puck out. Big pass up to Nick Robertson to get the assist on that goal and start that play. So he was another player that impressed me tonight. And obviously, I guess Kerfoot and Yarncroke on the defensive end of things, rather impressive. You still got to tip your hat to those guys for playing 2.5 periods of on the blue line after literally, like, who would have thought that was going to happen? Not a single person. So also, I guess, give some kudos to why am I blanking on his name? Dean Chenoweth, the defensive coach, for making it all work, I suppose. So shout out to Dean. I think that we could probably put a bow on that one. Next game is going to be Friday night. They'll be taking on the Ottawa Senators. So we'll probably try and break that down for you tomorrow a little bit. But we'll take one more quick break. When we get back, we'll play some cosign, no sign, my friend, and probably talk a little bit more about Denis Malgin. And we got to get into this Aaron Judge thing that happened last night, right in the six, right in the city of Toronto, because there is a really unhappy Torontonian in our city, and I want to talk about it. So we'll do that on the other side as well. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. Listen to Locked on these podcasts. We'll be back after a quick word from a couple of our show sponsors. Welcome back into Locked on these podcasts. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. We are a daily Maple Leafs centric podcast, so be sure to subscribe if this is your first time listening to us. Hopefully you enjoy the content and you'll share it with all your friends and buddies and family, and join us back here each and every day, Monday through Friday, for some brand new content. All right, cosign, no sign, Dave. It is one of our favorite segments that we play here on the show. We haven't done it in a couple of weeks, though, so I'm kind of excited to get right back into the things here. But I will start with this first bonus one because I just want to talk a little bit about this Aaron Judge. So I thought, how can I come up with a cosign, no sign that equates to what Aaron Judge did? And if you're not aware of what happened, must be living under a rock. But Aaron Judge has been chasing down Roger Maris's home run record, AL home run record, for 6 days now, and finally in the game, tonight as we're recording this, but last night as you're listening to this, hit number 61, and he tied the record. And that baseball was supposedly going to be sold upwards of about $500,000 if he were to hit number 62. It is a $2 million baseball, apparently. And Dave, 61, $500,000, and it went to the Blue Jays. It landed in the Blue Jays bullpen and ended up going to, what's his name? Matt Bushman. Yeah, Matt Bushman. It's like, a Blue Jays bullpen coach, Matt Bushman, is where it landed. And I don't know if he was able to get anything for like giving it back to the Yankees. Apparently, the Yankees did get the ball back after the game. I don't know if he's going to receive anything for it, or if they're just like, if there's some sort of agreement, like, hey, if this lands in the bullpen at any point in the series, like, for the good of the game, you're going to give it to us, right? And they agree to it. I don't know. But I could tell you something. If I was Bushman, he's probably not making, the $2 million or something like that. He's probably not making a whole lot of money relatively to what the players are making. Probably making decent money compared to you and I would think. But man, would that piss me off? You got a $500,000 ball in your hand, and you just got to, here you go, sir. Give it right back to the Yankees. That stinks.
Yeah, can I show you a tweet that went up just after all? Like, you see the video, you see Matt Bushman take the ball. He didn't even give it. He kind of just like left it off to the side, and like there's a police officer. I'm gonna bring up the tweet. There's a police officer there. There's Yumi Garcia's there. I'm like, he's just really just gonna leave the ball. His wife, Sarah Walsh, works for the NFL Network. And first she's like, bad news is I'm down here in Florida battling a hurricane, but the good news is I can announce my retirement. I don't know, maybe she didn't realize that ball was worth 500,000 and the other one's worth 2 million.
Yeah.
Her response to me was hilarious. Like, oh, cool. He just handed the ball back without checking to see if our house is still here. I'd like to announce our divorce.
Tough. Lost a wife and $500,000 because he was being a good guy, I guess. Just a good baseball man. Didn't want to mess with the baseball gods. That's upsetting. But, I mean, that ball was literally maybe 6 inches from being caught by a fan. And did you see the video that's out there? Let's play this video for those who are on watching on YouTube with us. If not, like, just go check it out. Go to Blue Jays
I'm pulling it up.
Twitter and all that. You can watch it. But there is one gentleman who is beside himself today because he knows he was about.
Maybe it's a coincidence he's sitting there. Look how close he came. Got a glove on it, Bucks. 5'10". If he were 6'1", he'd have had that.
He can't believe it. He
caught
threw
the
his
glove
glove
in his
back.
Oh.
He is sick. You come to a ball game, and out of all the seats you could possibly sit in, he was sitting in the right seat. His arm wasn't long enough.
Oh man! And as a shorter, stubby-armed guy I am, I sympathize with the guy. Like, if that was an Aaron Judgian level, size person, he probably does reach over the fence and is able to get that ball, but literally maybe 6 inches away from $500,000, and nothing. Went off the wall, down into the bullpen, and he gets squat. Oh.
Can I? Another funny part is that Judge goes up the bat again with the chance to break the record, and the guy is just sitting there like
dejected. He's like, nope, I'm not coming here. That my chance was a moment ago. I blew it. I lost it, and that was like, would you have fallen over? Cosign, no sign, David. Would you have fallen over the rail to give yourself the best opportunity to catch that baseball?
No.
Like, you needed another.
I mean, I might have a good possibility. I might have fallen just out of just
topple over, being a top heavy individual.
I'm a very clumsy. I don't have good balance either. Like, but I probably wouldn't have. Like, I'm also that person that if I get too close to like a barrier free, like an edge, I'm like very careful about that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I saw a lot of people being like, "Oh, dive, go get the ball," and then.
Oh, come on.
But I don't know. Yeah.
You're not diving for that. I'm sorry. Like, I hate to say it, but that's very dangerous.
$1 million might be worth like a broken shoulder. I don't know. I might break my shoulder for $500,000. Go to neck brace for 2 weeks. That might be worth it. I don't know. Let me know the comments.
Potentially permanent neck damage, $500,000.
I mean, best case scenario, obviously, you don't
hurt yourself at all.
Hurt yourself.
You maybe can make the catch without having to hurt yourself.
Yeah, maybe he's a cat and he can land on his feet.
That's why you need to do what the guy in New York did, and he had the massive goalie glove.
That's what I was thinking. So not goalie glove, but like a fishing net. If you're front row, bring yourself a fishing net so you've got all of that extra room and it just lands right into your net.
I mean, the breadbasket of a goalie glove is pretty big too. I mean, it's not fishnet size, but
I mean, like that'll give you an extra 3 feet, right? Like you can stick that thing down and make sure you catch that baseball, even if it's about to go right into the bullpen. You can go and scoop that thing up with your fishnet, and $500,000 later, you're laughing. But yeah, tough night for that individual. All right, let's get to the Leaf-related cosign, no signs. I'll let you start, pal.
All right. Well, mine kind of sums up with the injury stuff. Is with the injuries, Kyle Dubas makes a big point to push and sign Rasmus Sandin.
Oh God. Now, does he make the phone call to Louis Gross? I think so. But does he budge on his number? That I don't believe will happen. So how should I answer that question if that's the case?
So, yes, he'll make a big push to sign him. So you're co-signing that, but not in the way that he's just going to cave in.
Yeah, like I still don't think that Dubas will look at this and say Sandin has leverage. I need to up my price. I need to up my offer. I still think it's the same offer. And it's, hey, man, we're coming back to the table. Let's get this thing done. This is the reason why. Here's the opportunity you have. There's a legitimate top 4 opportunity. Not only top 6, but top 4 opportunity in this group right now. Come grab it. Come take it. Get to camp. Earn your spot. But they can't even afford to give him much money. Like, that's the thing. They legitimately just can't afford it, because eventually these guys are going to come back. They're going to be healthy, and they got to be under the cap. So they really can't afford to give him much money unless they really make a big deal and move out some cash, which I don't think they really want to do either. So that's kind of where I'm sitting on this at this point.
You don't want to compromise one spot for another, right? We've seen teams now have to, okay, we're going to sign, like Florida, we're going to sign now 2 goaltenders to a combined $15 million cap hit starting next season. All right, so that just means somebody's getting the boot next season. Like
it could very well be one of those goalies, and they're going to have to eat half of Bobrovsky's contract realistically.
Gross.
Yeah,
that's why you don't sign goaltenders like him to 8-year deals.
Dude, there's 4 more years on that bad boy. 4 more years.
I remember somebody suggesting that the Leafs should go after Bobrovsky, and I'm just like, did you look? Was that you? Yes, it was you.
I brought it up. I'm going to bring it up. At 50% cap, though, right? Like that 50% cap, so at $5 million. And I mean, I would still rather Bobrovsky at 5 than Murray at 4,875. You know what I'm saying? Like for an extra $250,000, I think I still would rather have Bobrovsky.
If Florida's going to eat half of it,
that was the qualifier. They had to eat half of that contract. I'm not taking that for anything less, but I did make that.
And don't get me wrong, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure Bobrovsky has a no movement clause.
Probably. Yeah, probably. I mean, you're signing a $70 million contract. It probably does come with a no movement clause. Typically, they do. Is it my turn? Yes, my turn. Right. All right. Denis Malgin. He's got 2 goals so far through preseason, 3 points. By the end of the year, Denis Malgin will have played more games than Nick Robertson with the Maple Leafs.
I'm going to co-sign that.
Really?
I'm going to co-sign it because Nick Robertson still has options to go down to the Marlies.
So does Malgin, doesn't he?
I don't think Malgin does. I don't know if Malgin's waiver exempt.
I can check. But go on with your point while I check.
Because look, is it a bad thing if Robertson doesn't make the team? No. It's not like he's a 24-year-old. He's, if I'm not mistaken, I want to get his age wrong. He's 20.
He's
Or
21.
21.
He turned 21 like last week, like literally 2
Yeah.
weeks.
Okay. 21. That might be old to some, but to me, that's still a young kid, right? Trying to make his way through. And I always have to remind people that he's already had 1 year impacted by the pandemic. So he's a year behind in a lot of ways. So let him develop at the pace that makes sense for him. Don't rush it. So I do think, yeah, Malgin. There's a little more of a you have options with Robertson. I don't know if you really do have it with a Malgin and how his contract works. So we're able to find that out.
I'm taking a look right now. I'm just trying to see if he is waiver exempt, and I, for whatever reason, can't find that information. I don't know where.
Because I know he at the end of this deal he's still an RFA.
Yeah,
And he has arbitration rights, but I don't know if that has any impact on his waiver status.
but even like you think he would get waived either way. Like I'm not even or claimed. Like I'm not even sure if he ends up getting claimed if they do waive him. Like if he doesn't make the club, it's probably because he didn't. You know, he didn't earn
Oh, we talked about this the other day. Every team loves to take a guy from the Leafs.
Wow, yeah, that is very true. That is true. So maybe I don't know. He's he's an interesting person though. Like at 25, I don't know how many people are looking to claim him and plug him into the roster. That said, we're talking about the Maple Leafs doing it. So maybe there are a couple teams around the league who would also want to do it. Arbitration eligible, but I don't know why it doesn't say waiver eligible.
I don't think he's waiver. I don't think he's waiver. So.
But I don't think that would necessarily I don't think they would hold Robertson down in order to not risk losing Malgin.
Mm-hmm.
Like if Robertson earns the ice time over Malgin, I think Robertson gets the ice time. Like I don't think he's a guy with oh, we've got to put him on waivers. Let's just keep him on the team and send Robertson down instead. I don't think Malgin has that type of cachet.
No, he doesn't. But I also I'm looking at how one player is playing during preseason right now, really pushing to get his name into that conversation to play a lot. And I think this Leafs coaching staff likes the way he plays. He's clearly doing things right to get noticed. So.
Yep, absolutely. All right, next one for you.
All right, next one for me. Ilya Samsonov will be the opening day starter.
No sign. Gonna no sign it. I think if they're both healthy, Matt Murray will be given the opportunity to start as the 1A. Okay. I just think that's how it's gonna work out. So far, both of them 1-0, 16 saves on 16 shots for both of them. So they're pretty even Steven through one game apiece through regular season. I think Samsonov's getting a start. I believe he's going to play a full 60 minutes actually against the Senators on Friday. I believe I heard that. Yeah. I could be wrong, but I think so.
No, you're right.
So, you'll get another look at Samsonov in that game. But ultimately, I still think that Matt Murray has, He's the veteran of the group. He's got a little bit more of that, to use the same word I used a second ago, cachet, to declare himself as like the starter. If it's a 50-50 through training camp, Matt Murray probably gets the nod, right? Ty goes to the vet. So I think Matt Murray would end up being the opening day starter if that's the case. All right. Yeah, me neither. All right, next one for you, pal. Along the same lines, another goaltending one. Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov will combine for a 9-10 or better save percentage this season with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Oh, that's a tough one.
910 would be considered above league average from last season, by the way. League average last year, 907.
Because I'm gonna. The only reason why I'm gonna no sign is I think they're gonna be just short of it. I
Like
think.
down to 5 or so.
Yeah, I think they're gonna be like the 905 because Samsonov usually doesn't. Like, he's really hasn't had a season where he's been well above league average. Like Matt Murray has, but Samsonov hasn't. I'm a little concerned that his save percentage might not be that high. But again, he could totally prove me wrong and go back to the numbers he put up in the KHL, which was a little while ago. So I'm going to no sign it because I just think they're going to be short of it. But I don't think they're going to be too far off. They're not going to be what they were last year. They're not going to be below 900.
So the identity of the Blue Jays fan who we just talked about has been released. His name is Frankie Lasagna.
Of course.
Frankie Lasagna. Wow, what a handle!
Thank God they didn't actually get the guy's name because anybody who works or grew up with him, his phone is. I'm turning my phone off right now if I'm that guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because I can't believe you were so close. It's just gonna make you just keep getting madder and madder for every single text call you get, email from work people. Absolutely. All right. Next one for you.
This is the final one for me. Actually came from Discord, from Bulletman13 on Discord.
Shout out Discord.
Yeah, this one here's a little. It's a little out there. I'm not gonna lie, but I love that we're going a little outside of the box. Jason Spezza will be considered the next Leafs GM if Kyle Dubas is let go.
Let go this year or like in the future?
I think it was after the end of the season, if I'm not mistaken. Is how he put it.
I'll no sign it then. If he's let go after this year, I don't think 1 year under the wing of Kyle Dubas is going to be nearly enough for him to get the experience needed to be a general manager in the NHL. I don't think that'll be the case. Maybe at some point, if this, he decides to be under the wing of Dubas, this year he's doing a whole bunch of different things, scouting, development, whatever. If he eventually decides, maybe I do want to get into the management side of things, and he starts out and then becomes an AGM, maybe at that point, if 5-6 years down the road, down the road, and they decide to move on from Dubas, then he could there could be a succession plan. But after one season of being just a consultant, essentially, like an assistant to the general manager, no, I wouldn't say that's nearly enough experience for me to allow him to become the general manager of a team which will probably again have Stanley Cup aspirations and have a pretty big expiring contract on its way next summer as well. So I'm gonna no sign that one, but it's a good question. It's a good question.
I think one day Jason Spezza will definitely be an NHL GM. I just think if he had a few years under his belt, I know that the Montreal Canadiens went the radical route and just got a guy who has no experience as an NHL GM to be their GM.
But at least he has experience in hockey. He was Mike Gill did the same thing, right?
Contracts and stuff.
He was a GM. He was a player agent, right? Dubas was a player agent that went into management, right? This guy went from the ice to the office. There's so much more he's got to learn before being thrown into the fire.
And I also just think that Spezza would want to do more of the player evaluation stuff and development stuff than the contract negotiation stuff. I just don't think that's his forte too much. That's why we don't even know if he wants to be a GM. Maybe he doesn't want to go completely that route. He might just want to be. He might want to go through the scouting and development staff part first before he even considers a GM role.
Yeah, it's a good point too. All right, buddy, we'll bring that to a close. Fun segment of co-sign, no sign. We'll have to pick it back up again maybe next week. And if you have any that you want to throw at us for us to answer, you can leave those in the comment section down below or hit us up on Twitter. I'm at Mickey_Canuck. He's at D_Morassutti. But that to do it for us here today on the pod. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcasts and platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. We'll be back with another episode tomorrow. It's going to be another game day preseason matchup against the Ottawa Senators. We'll help tee you up for that one and get you ready to go for the weekend. Until then, though, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.